Hi everyone, Emily here from Emily Reads, and today I have for you the 2022 Mid Year Freakout Tag that's been all over YouTube. Um, First, I just a note on lighting. I've played with a whole bunch of different things to try to figure out lighting. I've had lights on, lights off, in my usual corner. It is a really dark and gloomy day here. We've got thunderstorms, which is great because we're in a drought and that's not helping farmers out. Um, but I have one window. I don't have a lot of natural light to begin with, and then just where things are set up and electrical outlets are, trying to figure out lighting has been awful. So I apologize for the lighting up front. That being said, I wanted to get this filmed before too much time had passed and before I'd forgotten um, some things. So that is why you're getting the Mid-Year Freakout tag in not the best of lighting. I apologize. So that being said, I don't know who originated this tag. If you know, please let me know in the comments below because I want to make sure that that person has credit. Um, I've seen this mid-year freakout tag on numerous channels, so just type in a YouTube search and you'll find out a plethora of mid-year freakout tags. It's been really fun to like watch and learn like what people have been reading and if they're similar tastes or not. That being said, I'm going to get started. So, number one, best book read in 2022. So, I am kind of stingy on my 5 stars, and I've only given out 3 5 stars this year. Um, and one, I would not say that this is for sure top number one best book that I've read this year, only because the best book I've read this year I'm using for best sequel. So, this is the best book that I've read that is not a sequel, and that would be Black Sun. Ha! My books just slid and crashed into my side there. That would be Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. And this is a fantasy set in pre-Columbian times. It draws a lot from like Aztec lore. And it's a story of 4 different people. One who is a teak sailor, one who is got like an air of mystery around him, one who is the sun priest, and one who is the son of one of the tribal leaders, the Carrion Crow clans. And it follows these 4 lives as the convergence or like a solar eclipse is about to happen. I knew going in that the first chapter would start off like a bang, and it sure did. And that just kept going and going. And it was just like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And the last 40 pages were just so good. So I was thoroughly enjoying just the pace of it, just the tension and the stakes. I finished this book, and within an hour, I was at the bookstore purchasing Fevered Sun. So, 5 out of 5 stars. And I'm sorry about the camera angles too. All right. The next book I have for you is Best Sequel, and that is Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. I mean, if you know me and you've been watching me, I've been on a Robin Hobb journey this last year or so, and I just have been loving her, and this book was just wonderful. For sure, 5 out of 5 stars. It's just simply perfect. It is the 3rd and final book in the Tawny Man trilogy, the 9th book in the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb, and it follows Fitz and the Fool and a different cast of characters. I can't go too much into this plot because there's so much spoilers that I would give away, but if you have not picked up any Robin Hobb book, please start with Assassin's Apprentice. She's fantastic. Then for number 3, new release you haven't read yet. First is Gallant by V.E. Schwab, and I purchased this a while ago. And you can see I've already started reading it, but then I stopped it because other books were kind of taking over. And I realized like this would be a great read to read in October. So I'm kind of holding out on reading this until October because it's got kind of like a gothic vibe to it. And then I'm going to also add Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse because I have to read this. It was just like Black Sun was just so good. Then number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and that would be Bloodmarked. I'm going to show Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. So Bloodmarked is the sequel to Legendborn, and in Legendborn we have, I can't remember her name, Bree? Yes, Bree Matthews. So her mother passes away, and she decides to take part in a study program at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And there she witnesses a murder on her first night, and it looks like there's magic involved. And so it kind of follows her into learning about secret societies and different things and learning about her magic. I really enjoyed it, and so I'm looking forward to the sequel. Then the next prompt, number 6, is Biggest Surprise, and that would be Evie Drake Starts Over by Linda Holmes. And in this book is about Evie Drake, who she lives in a small town in Maine, and at the very start of the book, her husband dies. And so now she's widowed, and she has a very hard time leaving her house and getting out and getting back into society again. And everyone thinks like it is her grief that is keeping her in the home. Our other main character, he is a major league pitcher. His name is Dean, and I can't forget what they call them, but he's a pitcher, and for some reason he gets a major case where like he can't throw a straight pitch anymore, and he can't figure out why. And he's gone to like sports psychologists and physical therapy and all sorts of different things, and nothing is fixing this. So he decides to rent an apartment like above her garage. And so of course they meet. Of course there is a friendship there. And this was not like a rom-com. And I was going into this thinking this is going to be a rom-com. No, it had some depth and dealt with some good, deep issues. So that's why this was a book that really surprised me. I did enjoy it, and I would recommend this book. Then number 7, favorite new author. And I've only read, wrong book. I've only read one book by her, but that's going to be Rebecca Roanhorse. I am now living for her. So I've heard mixed things about Fevered Star. I hope it's still good though. Then the next, newest fictional crush. I don't know if I really have a fictional crush. I'm going to say this, I just read Book Lovers yesterday by Emily Henry, and for romantic comedy, I love that book. Now, I started reading it in like April, May, or when it first came out, and I got about 30% through, and the humor was not just clicking with me at that time. So I stopped reading it, especially since I was like, I've got these other books that I want to read more that I want to read, Book Lovers. Well, I have a book discussion I'm doing. I'm part of a Facebook group, and they're hosting a book discussion on Book Lovers tomorrow, and so I was like, I have to read this now. I blazed through it yesterday. Started it and finished it yesterday. I'm a teacher. It's my summer break. Um, and I loved it. I laughed out loud so many different times. So that experience told me, like, you know what? Sometimes, like, you might not be in the right mood for a book. You just need to set it aside and then come back to it. And it might just click with you then, just depending on what's going on in your life. The next book is, oh, I missed a prompt. I missed prompt 5. I gotta go back to prompt 5. Prompt 5 is Biggest Disappointment, and that would be Times Convert by Deborah Harkness. Now, I love her All Souls trilogy. I love A Discovery of Witches. I love that whole series. And this is, it's not really part of the series, but it is related to that world, where we still follow Marcus and Phoebe and Matthew and Diana. I think Deborah Harkness tried to do too much. So she tried to follow Phoebe and what was going on with her after a development in her life. We follow Marcus and we get his backstory when he was just turned into a vampire and his history. And then we follow Matthew and Diana and they're building their life together. It was too much. Either one of those plot lines would have been a book on their own right. And so there were some things and some events in this book that you're kind of leading up for and like, oh, just wait until you get to this point in like New Orleans, and it was not really covered in depth. And it was like you're building up to something and you're expecting it to be so much bigger than it actually was. So that's why this was the biggest disappointment for me. So okay, now I can go back on track. Sorry, I didn't mean to skip number 5. Now I'm on number 9, and that is newest favorite character. And that would be Gar from Malice and Storm from Malice. So Gar, he's kind of like the stable master, and there is some depth there and some mystery there to his character that I cannot wait to learn more about. And we get hints of it throughout this book, and you realize that Gar's really kind of a badass, and I can't wait to get more of Gar. Storm is a Wolven, and he's kind of like an animal companion, and Storm and Night Eyes are kind of like, they're up there for me for animal companions. Night Eyes is from Realm of the Elderlings. I love getting his point of view, but Storm, he will tear your throat out if you threaten the person that he is there to protect. And I love that, like that he will go into that fight and he will make sure that you are protected. Love Storm. Then a book that made you cry. I am not going to go back through my pile of books that I've set on the ground there, but that would be Fool's Fate. If you've read any of Robin Hobb, you know that you need to have a box of Kleenex next to you, because she has no problems taking your heart out, ripping it to shreds, and then putting the pieces back together. And her fans know that that's going to happen, and we just keep coming back for more because she just does it so well. So, Fool's Fate. Then a happy book, Emily of New Moon by Ella Montgomery. This follows the story of Emily Starr, and she's an orphan. Her father recently passes away, and she is then left to grow up with her 2 older aunts and her cousin Jimmy. And her older aunts, her mom, these are her relatives on her mother's side, and her mom kind of ran off to marry her father. Her mother's side of the family was very well-to-do, very focused on image, and her father was a poor teacher. And so she ran off to marry him, and basically those family ties were severed. So Emily does not know her family outside of her father growing up. And so she's sent basically then to live with these strangers and grow up. But it was just a beautiful story of her trying to find her place in the world, um, to adjust to, you know, a new living arrangement and building beautiful friendships. So Ella Montgomery wrote Anne of Green Gables. That's a much more beloved series. This also is beautiful. There is a relationship in this book that when you read it, in Modern Sensibilities, you're just kind of like, that sounds really kind of creepy. Like, the character comes off as creepy sometimes. I'm not going to lie. I think partly because I think things were different back then. I do. And also the lines are setting up for, this is a reread for me, so I know what happens in the third book. The lines that he says that you're like, ooh, that's really kind of creepy, it sets you up for events that are going to happen later in the trilogy. So, like, that's kind of why. It's kind of creepy. Like, when I read it, I was like, that is a little bit uncomfortable. But it's still, I really enjoyed this book. And I would love to be able to share with you, like, what those moments were. Like, but I can't because then they're spoilery. But just know, it's really not as bad as what you think it is. Okay. Then the next is the most beautiful book that you have bought, and that is The Wisterious Society of Lady Scoundrels. And the covers, I'll be honest, I bought this in part because of the cover. The cover is just so beautiful. It's a beautiful shade of blue. I love the purple flowers. Purple is my favorite color. It's just a beautiful cover. And then last, what do you need to read by the end of the year? I want to finish Realm of the Elderlings. Like, I need to finish that before the end of the year. Beyond that, the other books that I read, that's great. But Realm of the Elderlings for sure is like high priority. And I do need to read more Brandon Sanderson. So I do want to read Warbreaker at least before the end of the year. And I would probably say The Great Hunt, the second book in the Eye of the World. And that keeps getting pushed further and further down on my TBR. So if I had to prioritize Realm of the Elderling, Brandon Sanderson, maybe The Great Hunt. So that is all. Please let me know in the comments below your thoughts on my picks, and what was your best book of the year? What was your most disappointing book of the year? Have a wonderful Saturday, everyone.